Howdy kids, welcome to another episode of Escaping the Cave. It is the Todzilla X Pod, about to be the Todzilla X Pod again. I think I've decided. I threatened you with a name change before. Right on the cusp of it. But doing it, this Escaping the Cave thing, since 2018, it's hard. It's not like you can just change your name. Right? I'm your friendly host, Todd. Not congenial this week, sorry. Thanks for stopping by, though. Not like anything's going on this week. I mean, really, what else you got to do? How else are you going to occupy your time? It's not like there's anything to watch on television. Jesus. It's episode number 153. Record date on this beast is February the 1st. Welcome to February of 2025. Oof. Another 6 weeks or so. We'll have, not even 6 weeks, Christ, 5 weeks? A little less than a month, maybe? Gonna have baseball games. Woo! I'm celebrating with my baseball jersey. If we get there, for crying out loud. I don't know where to start with this. What a week for aviation, huh? Started off, I guess, what was it, Wednesday? Is that when the helicopter, the Black Hawk helicopter, collided with a Bombardier regional plane over Washington, D.C., over the Potomac, actually. Almost 70 people dead there. They're still trying to figure out what happened. Looks like the blame is being placed solely on the military. Looked like the pilot of the passenger plane was doing exactly what he was supposed to be doing. So there was that. We're about 2 days into covering that. It's all over the news. And then just a few hours ago, as I record this, it's early Saturday morning. And just a few hours ago, less than 12 hours ago, another plane went down, this time crashing in Philadelphia. That's a terrible story, man. Terrible. It's an air ambulance transporting a young girl. I don't know that they've released any information on her age, anything like that, other than to say Shriners Hospital released a statement saying that the girl had just had life-saving treatment at their facility in Philadelphia. They had taken out a contract with this air ambulance to fly her back, I guess, to Tijuana. She was a Mexican girl. Her and her mother on this plane. She just had this procedure done. And something happened with the plane. It just went, it came down like a meteor, a missile. It was incredible. There's so much footage of this because it happened in Philadelphia. In the city, I guess about 20 minutes northeast of downtown. So there's the Ring doorbell footage, dash cam footage from, private. I mean, so much. And if you've seen it, it looks exactly like a meteor. It's traveling so fast and at such a steep angle. No way anybody survived that. Full complement of fuel. Kaboom. Looked like a mushroom cloud. This just happened a few hours ago. I'm not going to speculate on this too much because, nobody really knows anything, but that's not stopping anybody with the other one this week, right? Again, I think it happened Wednesday. That's the one thing I didn't look up to refresh my memory. It was either Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday. I think they said it was 48 hours. This one was 48 hours after the other one. So I guess that would have been Wednesday. Like I said, almost 70 people dead there. You all know the details. It's everywhere. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you've gotten your fill of information on this. So I'm not going to do a play-by-play on everything. But oh boy. See, this is the thing about Donald Trump. My wife told me this the other day. She hates him. She can't stand him. This is proof positive that two people who have differing political views and vote differently can peacefully coexist. We don't talk politics much, but I watch the news a lot, primarily, I'd like to think, because of this podcast. So I have to kind of stay informed, kind of know what the hell I'm talking about as best I can. and not rely on getting my news online from people like you on social media. Well, where are you going to go to get really good information? Anyway, that's another conversation. But she said to me last night, this is why I hate Trump. Because he comes out and he immediately starts blaming diversity, equity, and inclusion. I am not a DEI fan. You know that by now, right? Have I been in any way ambiguous about that? No. I hate DEI. I hate everything about it. But they don't know what happened with this flight yet. And already there he is, out there blaming DEI, incompetence, suggesting that the previous administration's diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, which I loathe just as much as you do, were responsible for this, but we don't even know who was in the control tower. We don't know the third person, at least not yet, the third person who was in the helo, in the Black Hawk. We know two of them, two white men. Who was the third one? I think it was a woman. There might have been a woman on board. See, was she piloting the plane? There's conflicting information about that. They've refused. The family has refused to release her name. Can you blame them? They don't know what happened. All they know is that that helicopter was probably flying way too high, higher than it was authorized or supposed to be flying for that route. It flew directly into the path of this passenger plane, which in about 15 seconds would have been on the ground, safely on the ground. So Trump comes out. He's always in campaign mode. And decides as he's going to say that it almost certainly was DEI and that somebody was unqualified, blah, 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 blah. Nobody knows that as of right now, as I sit here recording this on the very early morning of February 1st, 3 days after it happened. This is the thing. Trump cannot get out of his way sometimes. If he would he didn't have to say anything about this. He could just let the investigation play itself out. Just say we're going to wait for the facts to come in. And if it does indeed is proven to be something to do with a diversity hire that caused this, then go nuts and I'm going to line up right fucking behind you. So are millions and millions and millions of other people who are eager. Let's not kid ourselves. Who are eager to blame this on wokeness, DEI. We're more than happy to. But to do it before anything has been proven, shown, before the cockpit voice recorders have even been downloaded, it's not a good look. My wife really wants to, maybe just to appease me, maybe kind of give him a chance. A little bit, kind of consider what he's saying, but he runs off the rails like this and starts screaming DEI before anybody knows anything. That's the key. He pushes people away who might otherwise. They may hate him, but they may be willing to at least give him a chance, considering he is in charge of the country for the next 4 years. Now, let's flip the coin over. It does not help that the FAA has been infested and infected with the DEI policies over the last several years. Now, this is true. They were focusing on hiring disabled people, dwarves, people with learning disabilities. Of course, that doesn't mean they're all going to be, funneled into the air traffic control tower. They could be doing a lot of different things. Just because they're employed by the FAA doesn't mean they're air traffic controllers. Fine. But let's assume that they were. Let's just, for sake of argument, for sake of bad faith argument, you're going to hear that word bad faith, I suspect, a lot in this episode. So, for the sake of bad faith argumentation, Let's pretend that they were. Guess what? Jessica Tarlov pointed out yesterday, and this was a wonderful, it was almost like a thunderbolt on the 5 yesterday. her co-host didn't like it and immediately went into attack mode, but she was absolutely right when she said the same things were going on during Trump's first term. Everything that's in place now was in place then. Where was he? Did he know? How does he explain that? Why wasn't it rooted out when he was president before, for 4 years, for a full term? But again, the DEI stuff right now, at least as it applies to the collision over the Potomac River this week, coming from the White House, coming from virtually all of conservative media, they make some good points, granted, but they're all argumentation. They're all rhetorical points. These are not good faith arguments. There's not enough information for it to be a good faith argument. Not yet. But you know what? Who the fuck cares? At this point, who the fuck cares? It doesn't matter if it's a good faith argument or not, does it? Are we having good faith arguments culture-wide as a society? Are we sitting down and discussing things thoughtfully and considerately with each other? We haven't been doing that for years. It's the story. It's the chum for the sharks swimming in your own little personal inland sea. You're isolated. Inland sea of rhetorical combat, I guess. Got to mix my metaphors there. But it's true, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're good faith arguments, the hypocrisy. It doesn't matter now. It's all about the story. It's all about the fight. What does they say? All is fair in love and war. What about rhetorical war? Clearly, that's what we believe. That's where we have gone. I sense this. Again, I'm gonna raise my hand here and pronounce myself guilty of this as well. I know I've been guilty of this. I've been aware of it for a long time. We don't care anymore. I came to this conclusion a couple of years ago when I came out and said, I'm going to be an anti-woke podcaster. Focusing on the middle, focusing on being rational, rationally discussing or exploring the psychosis, the lack of an ability or willingness to stay tethered to reality species-wide. What good is that going to do? What are you going to accomplish, Todd? That's what I ask myself. What are you going to accomplish? You're going to sit here and you're going to beat your head into a cinder block talking to no one. Everything that I talked about propaganda-wise from 2018 until a couple of years ago doesn't matter. It may be true. It may be 1,000% true. I think it's probably in the high 80s, but whatever. It could be. What does it matter? You're not Spock. You're not Mr. Rational. I'm not Mr. Rational either. None of us are. We are not built that way. I don't care what you've told yourself. I don't care what your mommy and daddy or your wife or your husband has told you. It's the story that matters. It's the tribalism. It's the rhetorical, informational combat. It's winning. It doesn't matter if you're having good faith arguments or not. Victory is the only thing that matters, depending upon how you define victory now. For the heart and soul of the country? Is that what we're fighting over? Are we fighting over the heart and soul of America? Or are we just beating the shit out of each other for the hell of it? Like tribes on the plains, sticking hatchets in the back of each other's craniums to move in and take their buffalo. And that's where we've gotten. I need you to stop pretending. And maybe I'm only saying this because maybe I feel really shitty about the fact that I got here, that I have become so cynical and so hopeless when it comes to this species, when it comes to the exploration of informational psychology, tribalism, that it really annoys me to no end to watch people pretending, and I don't even think they're pretending, that's the thing, thinking that their cleverness, that their propaganda regurgitation, their ability to recite some bullshit that they heard or read in some propaganda-infused dispatch, their ability to recite that accurately and on command makes them somehow enlightened. You're not enlightened until you take the mirror and turn it around on yourself and explore exactly what it is that's going on in your mind. If you hate Donald Trump, even if he says something truthful, you won't listen to it. You won't believe it. Or you'll take some cynical attitude about it. But again, we do this. I know I do this with Kamala. I ask myself this. I thought about this. I'm like, you know what? I feel this, and I've said this. I used the music example, I think last year, maybe it was 2 years ago, whatever it was. Like if you hate Ted Nugent, you're gonna think Stranglehold and Cat Scratch Fever sucks, right? So I asked myself, Todd, I said, self, that's what I call myself, as self. I said, self, can I think of one thing about Kamala Harris that I liked, that I agreed with? And I did come up with something, believe it or not, something serious. It wasn't the fact that she had lost and she was gone now, although I do like that about her too. But she did, I don't care if it was performative or not, I don't care if she was reading the winds, which ways it blowing, she did last year come out in support of Israel against Hamas. At least rhetorically. She did stand up to the batshit wing, the pro-Hamas wing, the pro-jihad wing of her party, the anti-Semitic faction of her party. And I gave her credit for that. I gave her credit for that last year. I don't know if I did it here, probably not, but I did in other places. Beyond that, that's a rarity. AOC. I'm doing this on the fly. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to explore this in myself. See, this is how it works. It's not best to do it this way in public. Usually it's best to do this in the privacy of your own home. But how would I do that? Is there something that I can think of, some redeeming quality of AOC? Her policies, what she believes, anything. What about Tlaib? Ilhan Omar. Is everything about these three people, these three squid, we're going to start calling them squids, these three squids. Is there anything redeemable there? I can't find it. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. Maybe AOC makes a great cupcake. But I can't think of it. It's because I loathe those three women. Not because they're women. I'm not being misogynistic. I don't like communists. I don't like Marxists. And I really don't like foreign agitators like Ilhan Omar infesting Congress. Tlaib, are you kidding me? Everything she stands for, I find repulsive. Here's something positive about Tlaib that I can give you. Despite being an extraordinarily ugly woman, she managed to get elected and reelected up there in Dearborn. There you go. She fought through the battle of unattractiveness. Hideousness, really. To gain public office up there in Detroit, Dearborn. The Dearborn? Whatever. So let's dispense with the Mr. Spock impersonations, shall we? We don't need to cosplay. We don't need the costume party. We are much closer, far closer to to Captain Kirk than we are to Mr. Spock. Dan Carlin made this analogy a few years ago. I remember talking about it on here, and it stuck in my head. That's exactly right. You are not Mr. Spock. I don't care how educated you is. I really don't. There's a lot of documentation in various other places that says the more educated, the smarter you is, the harder it is to fight through the effects of propaganda disinformation because you're clever enough, you're smart enough, you have the cognitive horsepower to construct better rationalizations and keep yourself entrenched in bullshit. There's a couple of attorneys that I made the mistake. And I say mistake because it's not anything they did. But there's two attorneys that I know of in my personal life that I've discussed politics with over the last, several years. One on one side, one on the other side. One's a raging liberal, one's a raging conservative. And I watched these two go at it on Facebook one day. And these are well-paid. They're supposedly successful. If you're an attorney, you're gonna admit that you're indigent? Probably not. So presumably these are two very, very successful, talented attorneys, right? And I watched them go back and forth at each other, and they would have you believe that lawyers just try to get to the good old truth. Defending our position. They're not getting at the truth. This was a perfect example of what happens on a lower level society-wide. They're litigators. They are taking a position. They are taking an ideological client and defending it pro bono. Getting to the truth. It doesn't matter if the ideology is guilty. They don't care. That's not their job. An attorney's job is not to get to the fucking truth. It's to win an argument. They're rhetoricians. Is that even a word? I don't know. They're litigators. Litigators. They're arguers. They're purveyors of bullshit. They're paid to be purveyors of bullshit. That's what lawyers do. Ask Johnny Cochran. He won the argument back in 1995, was it? Was he innocent? Was Johnny getting at the good old truth, was he? What about Trump's attorneys over the last 8 years, guys? Huh? Oh, but they're bad attorneys. They're bad because they're litigating for a side I don't like. That's what lawyers do. And guess what? Guess what Congress is filled with? And we are taking on, I swear to God, in the last 20 years since Facebook slithered out of God knows what, Zuckerberg's rectum. Should I name the podcast Zuckerberg's rectum? I'm sure that'll get a lot of downloads. But no, as soon as Facebook came forth, we started to see this. We started to adapt these traits that we're seeing attorneys, pundits. We've increasingly become these Manchurian propagandists that I like to talk about. We're taking on these argumentative traits, trying to be amateur litigators, amateur propagandists, really. And what is a propagandist if not an ideological attorney? Taking something based in fact and spinning it, presenting it one way or another in a positive way, at least from the litigator's perspective, to the jury, the people. What's the media become? If not, as I said last week, I called them informational whores. Maybe the bigger insult would be informational litigators, informational attorneys, arguing their case before the jury of the American people. The American people have started to see through it because they practice it. Of course they're going to see through it. They're going to see through the other teams. Again, I've talked about this 100 million times, it seems like, on this show. You're adept at seeing, every single one of us are adept, pros, experts at seeing the other team's bullshit, but we are terrible at seeing our own and our own teams. I've talked about these liberals. If they were to sit down and try to watch Hannity, their heads are going to explode. And, by the same token, if you take a raging conservative and put them in front of Rachel Maddow, their heads are going to explode because they'll be able to see through everything immediately. Who's right? They both are. But you ask them to apply that same standard to the home team, whoever's carrying the same flag they wave, well, they won't be able to do it. Almost no one can do that. It's a cognitive flaw, but is it? It's how we evolved. Tribalism, the group protecting the group against threats. So, I feel like I might be talking in circles here, but if you go back a couple of years, and this is what I did. I came to this point. It's almost like a roadblock. Maybe it's Trump's wall. And I came up against this, and it's like, I'm not the whisperer here, man. I'm not gonna change human evolutionary psychology. I have always wondered why propaganda wasn't more of a field of study. Why this stuff wasn't, a big deal. I get it now. It's hopeless. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with that? This is one of those things. I remember, who was it? I think it was Joseph Campbell talking about the heroic journey thing. I was really into this a long time ago. And you go through, you do your thing, you get your call, you go out and you have your great adventure, whatever you want, heroic, epic kind of thing. But the big thing for him, and I think throughout mythology, was after you have your journey, after you go find whatever it is that you were called to do or called to find, whatever it is, you come to a point. It's the return. That also applies to Plato's cave, and that's one of the reasons that I took the name of this podcast. Because even with Plato, it ties into the heroic journey thing. Plato, when you left Plato's cave, if the guy left, he got out of the cave and went up and explored the upper world, saw reality for what it was. Plato said he had a responsibility. He had a responsibility to return to the cave and tell people what he saw, to try to tell them that this is bullshit. None of this is real. What's real is up there. And there was a discussion, I think, in the allegory, what would happen? Would they believe him? And I think one of the lines was, they'd probably kill him. Yeah, I get it. I completely understand that now. I didn't before, I don't think. Or maybe I just had my thumb in my butt. Maybe I should name my podcast The Thumb in the Butt. But I get that now. And this is why this isn't a bigger field of study. There's there are certain people here and there that have investigated, studied propaganda and psychology, but not very many. That's why. What are you going to do with it? What does it matter? How do you apply it without being lynched? Because you're not going to appeal to anybody. As soon as you start talking bad about one congregation, they'll love you as long as you're, picking on that guy, picking on the Catholics. The Protestants will love you, right? Yeah. But as soon as you start turning the mirror on the Protestants, they're going to lynch you. So either way, you're without a camp. Tribalism wins. It always wins because that's who we are. We are tribal critters, tribal by nature. You're not going to get rid of that. And we have to end tribalism. We have to shut the hell up. Who the hell do you think you are? Really, who the hell do you think? It's just as bad as these people who chant and hate. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Hate in this species, in this particular species, is the driving force. Hate and fear drives human beings more than love. I'm sorry to tell you. One of the things I have written on this here card, these are the little notes that I take in between episodes. Excuse me. To kind of remind me as I'm going through the week of what I want to talk about. And one of the things I wrote down was Quixote and socialism. Don Quixote, you know. He was the guy who read all of his knight books and decided he wanted to be a knight. So he started to see himself as a knight. He convinced himself, he deluded himself to the degree that he went out of the world and started having delusional adventures. He attacked a windmill thinking it was a giant that was holding a fair maiden hostage. It's a great book. Cervantes. It's one of the best novels ever. It's one of my favorite books of all time. It's wonderful. It's instructive. And what I wrote on this card was Quixote and socialism. These people that think they're going to end tribalism, that they're going to end countries, we're going to end borders, we're going to end racism, we're going to end this and end that. Their thumbs are firmly up their butt, all the way probably toward the lungs. They think they're going to rework the entire species, just as Don Quixote thought that he was going to make himself a knight. They are so delusional in their self-righteousness that they think that their magic words and their magic programs are going to rework the entire human race. This is why they need to be stopped. If nothing else, this is right at the foundation of it. They're deluded. Delusional. Delusional. This is cult-grade fanaticism. This is Jonestown. We're going to start a whole new world. Let's go to Ghana. Look how that ended. Self-righteousness. Fanatical self-righteousness. And a complete disconnection from reality. But again, we're having the little circle thing go right back. What is it about the disconnection? Why is it that people are so disconnected from reality? Because they're locked in their own echo chambers. They're only listening to their personal storytellers. Anybody who would confront one of these fanatical Marxist, socialist, communist, whoever, anybody who thinks we can all come together and sing Kumbaya, John Lennon, imagine all the people, fuck you. Yeah, imagine it. That's about as far as close as you're going to get to realizing it. If you only need one excuse to kick these fuckers back to the 19th century, it's that. This delusional program of social eugenics, trying to craft, reimagine human beings into some ridiculously religious form. You may as well try to put angel wings on us. That'll happen just as quickly as you're going to end hate and tribalism. I talked a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was a couple of months, I don't remember when I talked about it, but I mentioned that George Orwell wrote that international socialism is powerless against the power of patriotism. Simple, basic patriotism, love of country. Why is that? Why do you suppose that is? Why does the brotherhood of man fail in the face of simple, elementary patriotism? Because patriotism, love of country, love of group, love of your countrymen, is tribalism. And tribalism is so deep, burrowed so deep, it's foundational, it's fundamental. We have built the entire species, every single society, every single one is built around the family. The family is the most basic example of a tribe. Tribalism. Who was it? There was something that I saw in the last couple of days. J.D. Vance was saying that first it's family, then it's community, something like that, all the way up to country. That the first thing that you focus on, that most people should focus on, you start with your family, then you start with your community, and you move up from there, which is the exact inverse of what these batshit socialists believe. That first you have to worry about everybody, the entire species, the global community. And individualism was way down. Screw up. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't. It just doesn't. It never fucking has. And the only times that people have tried it, it's failed miserably. Gulags, death camps, starvation, blah, 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 blah. Oh, we just haven't done socialism because it can't be done the right way. It's a flawed system that does not fit human beings, human psychology, basic, elementary human psychology, if you have open eyes. Quixote, Don Quixote, and socialism. They're drunk. They're drunk on their own contorted funhouse image, this image that they have of themselves and people. Imagine all the people. Back. Imagine me smacking you in the mouth. That's what I think. This episode was not supposed to be about this. So I got to, see, this is the sheet that I'm using. This is everything. These are just little cliff notes, right? I am here. This is how these episodes go. So anyway, yeah. I think I was talking about bad faith arguments, good faith arguments, when I went off on this tangent rant. We don't care. We're not having them because we are not interested in them. It is the story. It's tribal warfare. Trial by rhetorical combat. Government. By rhetorical combat. We're there. The truth doesn't matter. I have a friend of mine, he's one of these, he thinks he's Mr. Spock. And it's just entertaining to me to watch him because he argues with me about, the gatekeepers and truth and, the truth ministry stuff. And I'm watching him struggle with this shit. Why is this stuff so popular? Why is it that people always chew up, devour this? Well, they're not interested in the truth. He's not even interested in the truth. He thinks he is. We all think we are. The thing is, we're so goddamn clever that we can convince ourselves that the story, the appropriate story, the acceptable story, the story we seek, having our own shit fed back to us, we are so clever and so delusional, so expert at post hoc rationalization that we can convince ourselves that having something fed back to us is truth. Because it feels good. Oh, it feels right. It must be the truth. So stop lamenting this. Either stop lamenting it or accept it. Maybe both. Maybe stop lamenting and accept it. But I'm going to tell you, either that or you got to check the fuck out. If that bothers you, if not being able to do that bothers you, you've got a choice. You either join a camp, which is essentially what I did 2 years ago. All right, well, pick a side then. You know, you're not going to be able to fight this. You're not going to make a difference. Nobody's going to listen to you. The best thing you can hope for, Todd, is to get some reach, some engagement with your podcast. The best I could hope for would be to get shot. That would have been the end game. That would have been, hey, look, I guess I'm making enough of a difference. Somebody wants to put a bullet in me. This goes back to Plato. It goes back to, the heroic journeys. Yes, if you return and you show people what you found, they might kill you. They might. And I'm going to tell you something. After everything that I've read, after everything that I've learned, which is a lot, if I do say so myself, toot, you're not worth it. I'm sorry. You're just not. Does that bother you when I say that? Does that bother you when I say publicly on my own podcast that I presumably would like people to listen to? Does it bother you when you hear me say you are not worth dying for to me? But you're not. So you may as well join a team, join a club, put the hat on, put the team's hat on. This is mine. Or you're going to beat your head like I said earlier, into a cinder block, end up bleeding out in the dirt. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to give a shit. Nobody's even going to notice you're gone by the time you do that. Or you check the fuck out. You find something you enjoy, something that brings you joy, and stay the fuck away from all of this shit. That's the solution. If you're not down for the fight, if you think that the truth is going to set you free and that's the only thing that you're going to be able to deal with, the only way you're going to be able to, live with yourself, I highly suggest, if that's the truth, and calling me skeptical, but if it is the truth, if that is where you are, I'm going to put this seed in your fucking head. Figure out what it is you enjoy and have your go bag ready. Because you're not going to find any sort of joy, satisfaction. You're not going to find anything. The only thing you're going to find is frustration. People are fucked up. We are beyond flawed. That's the one thing that Christians have right. The one thing, Jesus Christ, these New Age. Ugh. The noble savage, if we could just strip away, oh my God, if we could just strip away the trappings of civilization, we'd get back to our noble selves. Fuck you. We civilized ourselves because we were so barbaric. Civilization isn't something imposed on us. We built it. As we got sick and tired of having people who were bigger and stronger than us come in, steal our shit, and rape our women and kill our kids. That's who people are. That's the noble savage. It's just savage. There's nothing noble about it. We are self-domesticated for a reason. Barely. Self-domesticated. And it's real easy to scrape that thin veneer of civilization off and find the filthy beast that lies beneath. That's one thing. That's what the Christians got right. That we are sinners. Hey, look, oh my God. It's a parable. It's a metaphor. We're fucked up. That was a system. We're trying to figure out a way to keep us from being even more fucked up, trying to keep us in line. That's the one thing the atheists miss, man. They miss the metaphor. They miss the entire fucking point of why that stuff was written. At least in the Christians' case. Now, you want to talk about Islam? You can keep it. You keep that shit away from me. Are you a Muslim? Keep that shit away from me. Kill the infidels. Yeah, such a religion of peace, huh? My ass. All right, I'm going to push through the rest of this. I'm going on way too long. Looks like I'm pushing almost an hour already. So anyway, I was saying that, it's about the story, right? And in this case, DEI has taken center stage under Donald Trump's term. He's applied that to the airplane collision, tried to apply it to, without merit, without cause, without proof. Oh my God, Donald Trump said something without proof. Go figure. But are you surprised? And I got to be honest with you. I say that Trump is, I say it as a criticism, but there's more than a small part of me that's taking some joy in this. Watching the liberals scream and squirm and cry, oh my God, you're just saying this without any proof. Because you guys did this with racism. For years, you've been doing it for years. Everything was racism, systemic racism. You're a misogynist. You're a racist. The only reason, blah, 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 blah. Racism. Well, now, guess what? It's DEI's turn. Get used to it. It's not going to go away. That's how noxious DEI was. Is still. It will get the desired response. Just the same way that screaming racist gives you a 3-hour erection, liberals. We like hearing DEI. We like hearing it demonized, just the same way that we had to tolerate and stomach racist for so many years and hearing everything attributed to climate change. Now you understand how this feels, how people react to that crap, how it feels to hear it shoved up your butt like a verbal enema. Every hour, on the hour. Sometimes more frequently than that. And beyond this, the one thing that DEI has done, and we can see that at work right now this week with just the accusations here. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, has tainted everyone who has benefited from it. Everyone who was hired as a DEI hire. Beyond that, the people who weren't, the ones who are qualified, the minorities, the people of color, the hires of color. It's unfair to them. It's tainted them because now these folks have to perform at such a high level. They've got to be perfect because as soon as they make a mistake, was he a DEI hire? Huh? Oh, we don't know. That's unfair. Of course it's unfair. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? Of course it was always going to. Well, that's just now. Again, let's go back. So yeah. So now you've raised the standard of expectation that every minority, every DEI hire, or every possible DEI hire now has to perform perfectly. Or they're going to get extra scrutiny. Is it fair? Who the fuck cares if it's fair? Again, nobody cares if it's fair. That was going to be the reality. It was always going to be the reality. When you started favoring one group or two groups or three groups over someone else, the ones who are getting the favorable treatment are going to be looked upon with scorn and with extra scrutiny by the people who feel like they're being treated unfairly. Human psychology. Duh. How did you not see this? You didn't care. Or maybe this is that Quixote thing. Thumb up the butt. Pretending that people are something that they're not. Which is that's the socialist contagion, isn't it? You can apply this to Elon Musk, especially over the last week. Who gives a shit about the truth, right? It's the Nazi salute heard round the world. It wasn't a Nazi salute, but oh shit, I shouldn't have done that, huh? Maybe I'll have to bleep that out. You have my heart. It doesn't matter if he was really doing a salute or not, does it? Musk derangement syndrome's been a thing for a really long time, ever since he turned into the apostate and left Camp Liberal. Decided he was going to go join another congregation. Well, he's been target number one, especially since he bought Twitter, right? Well, he can do anything. It doesn't matter. He could wipe his ass in the wrong direction and you would find something racist about it because he's Elon. He needs to be taken down. It's relentless because the man gets shit done. And that bothers you because he's not on your team. He's working against you and getting shit done. So you've got to do absolutely everything you can to tear the man down. Tear the man down. How's that working out for you? How'd that work out for Trump? You'll learn. A lot of people nationwide are really lamenting the discourse now, the stuff that I've been talking about, how we're going after each other, how we're just mean, how we're just saying shit, how we're just trying to make points, win arguments, blah, 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 blah. A lot of people are talking about that now. Seems like we went through this a few years ago, too. Where everybody's being all introspective or pretending to be all introspective about it. I've been watching some News Nation this week. Can't watch Fox after 6 o'clock. Just can't do it, and I won't touch CNN. MSNBC, no. But so I watched Cuomo, I think, once or twice in the last week. Excuse me. And he was lamenting it last night. Or the night before last, maybe. Was it last night or the night before? I don't know if I don't think I watched him last night. So it must have been Thursday night. Oh, I can't believe that how did we get here? How do we bring this together? How come there's always going to 11, either to the left or to the right? How come there's no middle? Bill Maher was whining about this Friday night. Cuomo was talking about how he's 5 years behind me. Literally 5 years behind me. He was talking about the stuff that I was talking about in 2019. For-profit propaganda. Agitation propaganda. Agitprop. These are for-profit propaganda outlets. No shit. No shit, Chris. Really? Where you been? You're in it. You understand how this works. Don't pretend. Don't fucking pretend like you don't know this is just dawning on you. If you didn't figure this out years ago, you're a moron. You're a retard. You know exactly how the media works, Chris. I don't know why it didn't dawn on me. Yeah, for some reason, that just clicked. That he knows exactly what this is. I was like amazed that he was finally saying this. I don't know, like I was saying this shit 5 years ago. I told my wife, they're only 5 years behind me. Can you believe this, honey? She just looked at me like, fuck you. But yeah. So maybe he's doing the finger in the wind thing. Trying to look for an angle. A fresh angle. I don't know. The one thing about the collision this week, again, I'm not going to talk too much about Philadelphia. I don't have enough information. So the one other thing, the big, I think, long-term takeaway of what happened in Washington might be the air traffic controller staffing situation. Current information. By the time you hear this, it may have changed. If so, I apologize. I'm just going by what I have, early morning, February 1st, 2025. Right now, the narrative is that there was one air traffic controller in that tower doing the job of at least two, maybe three, trying to communicate between the Black Hawk, which was on another frequency separate from the passenger jet. They couldn't hear each other. The Black Hawk and the passenger jet couldn't hear each other. So this guy was going back and forth between frequencies, talking to both of them. They were not communicating with each other. Having to do that, being the only one on staff, if that's true, at one of the busiest airports, the busiest runway in the country, that I think is going to be the long-term takeaway. Why? Why are air traffic controllers? Why are those positions so hard to fill? Why is there so little staffing? Inquiring minds want to know. My wife and I both came to the same conclusion this week. Watching that reminds us of Breaking Bad. I hope this guy's name is not Donald Margolis, I can tell you that. You know, I sat down and I thought I was going to talk about another 6 or 8 topics. That's how this goes. Just keep me going. I'm like one of those avalanches. Just push. So it's a little fiery tonight, huh? Not what I expected, but that's how it goes. Escaping the Cave, that's the name of the podcast. For now, going to be the Toddzilla X-Pod again, probably sooner than later, so be looking for that. You can check out the Substack page, that's at Toddzilla X. Also, Toddzilla X over there at the YouTubes. My voice is shot. That's weird. Apparently, it was the screaming and yelling. Videos being uploaded to Spotify, too, by the way, if you haven't checked that out, if you want to see the video versions of this. If you're just getting the audio, there's video out there. If you're just getting the video, there's audio out there. Talk to you next time. So long.